Welcome to Priceless Takes.
And we are live from the Gold Coast, Australia. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes, episode 52, fresh off the Super Bowl. The first reactions from both of us, and honestly, from pretty much anyone in the world, because in America, they are all sleeping and doing their analysis tomorrow morning. Joining me today is David Price, the NFL guru who has reclaimed his title after correctly predicting the Super Bowl champions, despite the fact he was about a
Excuse
month
me.
too late to jump on
Four
the
out of
bandwagon. He got
four
there
out of
in the
four.
end.
Under 47.5. Mahomes MVP. Chiefs to win and McCaffrey anytime goal scorer. $12.11. For all the punters out there that follow Pricey, we got the money. And Paddy, you're a true champion. And Luka, I'm sorry to say, you got it all wrong.
That's okay, David. Look, the first question I'll ask you is you're very hyped up about the Chiefs, and deservedly so. You got your prediction right. But my question to you is, why did it take you so long to pick them in the first place?
Well, Luka, as you know, I did pick San Francisco at the start of the season and tipped them to win the NFC championships. So I got the NFC right. So the punters collected very, very handsomely at that. And then you've got to go with you've got to know when the time is to, that saying, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And I knew to fold on the 49ers after tipping them the last 2 weeks in a row and numerous times through the season. I knew when to fold them and get onto the Chiefs and, the four-leg multi for all the punters. Some people have won houses today. Like, it's just been a phenomenal result. And I must say that Patrick Mahomes brought them home like a champion he is, and now he's going to be spoken about in the GOAT territory with one of my favourite players, Tom Brady. Andy Reid, fantastic. The whole team, they were gone. 49ers should have put them away, but as we've seen, they've been unable to do it. The only thing that I can say that you're right about is Brock Purdy had a tremendous game, and I really feel for the 49ers, and I feel for you because I know you're shattered that you got so many things wrong in this game, and you were very bitter after the game when you were trying to justify your loss, and that's why you wanted to get on so quickly to get this out of the way, because now for the next 7 months you're going to have to put up with David the Guru Price giving you a hard time about who got the Super Bowl correct again with the massive multi. So, it was a tremendous game. It was fantastic. It deserved overtime. I was eating my party pies and sausage rolls before I go into post-season surgeries, tomorrow, and it was epic. It was one for the ages. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm still hyped up. I still got my T-shirt on. I'm going out for the pizza tonight with the kids, and just what a great day. There's so much
Look,
sadness in the world, and today was just one of those great days.
I completely agree, but because it is such a great day, I'd like you to actually answer my question properly,
Oh, and
David.
you
I
owe me, and
understand.
you owe me, and you owe me a Chinese dinner.
That's completely fine, but David, I understand that you picked the 49ers to come out of the NFC, but you didn't actually pick the Chiefs to come out of the AFC in the first place. Not to mention, you picked against them in 2 consecutive playoff games up until the Super Bowl. So my question to you, David, I'll ask it again because you didn't answer it, you avoided it, is because the Chiefs are so good, and this is such a historic win for you. You haven't had a win like this in a long time. Why did it take you so long to pick the Chiefs? Why did you not pick them last week and the week before when you picked against them?
Luka, I've got a soft spot for my man Josh. He and I are very tight, as you know, and Lamar had improved a lot, and I didn't think that the Chiefs team was as good as what they were, but what I did say all along was Mahomes was the best quarterback in the league, and he showed that again today and brought them home. And I did mention to you last week that if Mahomes was on the 49ers team, how much would they win by? And you agreed with me. Even though Purdy had a great game, Mahomes won that game. And there's no question about it. And San Fran should have put the foot on the pedal in that first half. They're only up 10-3. They were in all sorts of trouble at halftime. So they did well to fight on. It was a fantastic game. I don't
I
think you
agree,
can go
David.
too far wrong. NFC champions, Super Bowl winner, the 4-leg multi at $12. As I said, people have won houses. It's going to be a long, happy, break for the NFL fans out there that follow yours truly.
Well, listen, David, I will agree. You did get there in the end, but it did certainly take a few wrong steps along the way to get to your eventual correct prediction. But
Couple of games, Luke. You want to harp on a couple of games. I got it right,
listen,
and unfortunately, you got it wrong. You just got to own
listen,
up. You got to man up, son. You're not a kid
I,
anymore, right? You got to man
I,
up. You owe me Chinese dinner, and you got to man up.
I,
You got to man up.
I completely agree that the game I did not predict correctly, but I do actually want to talk about the game itself because what a game it was, David. The
Sorry,
Chiefs.
did you see? Can you see? Can everyone see my T-shirt out there?
Yes, they can, David. The Chiefs walked it off 25-22 in overtime. Patrick Mahomes scoring a game-winning touchdown in the final seconds of overtime, connecting with Chiefs wide receiver Mecole Hardman. Mahomes finished with 333 passing yards for the game, going 34 of 46 completions, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. The Chiefs also had a fumble by running back Isaiah Pacheco in the first quarter. Brock Purdy on the other side was 23 of 38 completions for 255 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And again, a fumble in the first quarter from Christian McCaffrey on the first drive of the Super Bowl, David. Although McCaffrey did respond, he had 160 total scrimmage yards, and he's the first player ever to have 80 receiving yards and 80 rushing yards in a Super Bowl. David, no other San Francisco receiver was over 50 yards receiving other than Christian McCaffrey. The other story of the game, David, Travis Kelce. At the end of the first half, he was 1 reception for 1 yard. At the end of the game, he was 9 for 93 and had some huge plays in the fourth quarter and in overtime. The biggest other story with the Chiefs supporting cast
Did you see Kelsey nearly assault Andy Reid?
Yes, we can get it. We can get into that later because that is definitely a talking point of the game, Dave. But I do want to talk about the Chiefs supporting cast because Travis Kelce and Mahomes did have some help today. The other receivers finally came to play. Mecole Hardman, who scored the walk-off touchdown, and Justin Watson combined for 6 receptions, 111 yards between them. On the 49ers side, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, the 2 best 49ers receivers, was 6 for 82 yards between the 2 of them. David, listen, there's a lot of what happened in this game, but I want to ask you the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game.
2 words. Should be 4. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. But I've said to you for many, many years, champions and true champions of the game can lift the average player and the average person, whether it be a business or sport, to a level that they could never achieve without those players. And Patrick Mahomes showed that today. He lifted guys that could never possibly think of winning a Super Bowl in their high school and college careers to win a Super Bowl, and they might never win one again. And Patrick Mahomes showed his superstar qualities and what it takes to be a champion. And that's what that young man is. He's only 28, and he just led and led and led and never put his head down and never gave up. And that's what life's about. Patrick Mahomes is a role model to every single person in the world, no matter what he does or no matter what business or sport you're in. He is a role model.
Look, I completely agree, David, and that touchdown in overtime believe will go down as, if not the greatest, one of the greatest Super Bowl game-winning drives in the history of the NFL, considering the circumstances, considering the doubts that people had about the Chiefs throughout this season. I think it was a perfect way, and honestly, it couldn't have been written any better. The only way I'd say it could have been written better is if Travis Kelce maybe scored the game-winning touchdown with Tay-Tay in the crowd. But apart from that, they really couldn't have drawn it up any better, the Chiefs. And it really capped off their season from losing the first game in Detroit to being back in the Super Bowl and winning. I give full credit to Patrick Mahomes on that game-winning drive, David. Now, I want to switch gears to Brock Purdy because you were very harsh on him in the lead-up. If I do want to quote you, you said he would poo his pants and would need a change of pants for every time he steps on the field. And you briefly brought it up in the lead-off for this show, but I do want to hear your overall analysis on what Brock Purdy did and how he should be viewed from the rest of the NFL and from the rest of sports media after this game. He had been copping a lot of criticism, not only in the playoffs, but throughout the entire season. What do you think about his game and how he should be viewed after this performance?
Outstanding performance by Brock Purdy. He stood up today on the biggest stage in the world. I didn't think they'd let him throw the ball at all for the first quarter, and he was throwing bullet passes. The running game from McCaffrey was outstanding, as you said before. And Purdy showed to everybody today, taking on the best player in the world, in Mahomes, that he could stand up and be a real man. And he played fantastic. So there'll be no more knocks on me from Brock Purdy. But you know my rules around runner-up in Super Bowls. I've won one, I think, in the last 36 years. You're the stats man. You'll have to tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I know it's one in a very long time. So I don't like the chances of San Francisco already next year. But Purdy did play enormous. I would say that there's quite a few players pissed off. I know you don't like me swearing. I don't think that's a swear word. That they lost that game. So there could be a bit of fallout from San Francisco's loss in that game because they clearly, could have and maybe should have won. But there was no coach's error. He coached outstanding. Some of those plays were they were mind-boggling. That first touchdown from McCaffrey is one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. And a ballsy move, in a Super Bowl to that trick play to do that was I was just going, wow, I couldn't believe it. And then to go on the fourth down was huge. Like I just thought, I just thought they played enormous. It was a great game. And then Brock Purdy, I hope he signs a huge contract with San Fran, or if he, I'd say they'd keep him now. But he deserves, every accolade for such a young man. He had nerves of steel. So congratulations to him, even though he lost. Should hold his head up very, very high.
Look, I completely agree, David. And if you did respectfully admit that I was right about this, because I did see Brock Purdy having a good game, and he did have a good game. I would almost go as far to say he had a great game, considering the circumstances, considering Patrick Mahomes has gone through the gauntlet of the AFC. He went up in freezing minus 30-degree weather and pulled that one out. He went up against Josh Allen, who everyone for the most part was saying, this is what the Bills wanted. They got him in the building. This will be Mahomes' first playoff game on the road. He's going to unravel. Mahomes looked him in the eye and beat him. Then he went to Baltimore, where he was also an underdog. Went and looked Lamar in the eye. And I believe out of all the quarterbacks that Mahomes has played this playoffs, Brock Purdy was the only quarterback that looked across the field at Mahomes dead in the eye and said, I can compete with you and I can do better than you. Because seriously, looking at the situation, obviously Mahomes' drive in overtime was more quintessential because it was to win the game. But let's not forget, Kansas City took a 16-13 lead in the third quarter, David. And what did Brock Purdy do? He led the San Francisco 49ers down the field for a touchdown drive in a direct response to Patrick Mahomes, which is something we haven't seen many people do against Mahomes in his career, let alone Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who everyone was saying he can't do this, he can't do that. I think I agree with you. Despite the loss, he proved a lot of people wrong. I want to go into some details about this because,
Can
David,
I just say one thing? You love to say that you're right about something because you got everything wrong. So you love to say you're right about something.
Well, David, the other thing now, because we are declaring things that I was right about, even though I was wrong about the overall game, I did actually say Mahomes was going to break his streak of not throwing an interception in the game, because that did happen too. I did predict that for all of those out there. I do believe I said 0.5 interceptions on Mahomes take the over, so hopefully some punters actually won some money off me on the game too, unlike you. But another funny stat for you, David, Jawan Jennings, who threw the touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey, was 26,000 to 1 to be the first touchdown scorer in the Super Bowl. So someone out there, probably no one, probably thought, maybe someone as a joke, maybe put some money on him to bet. But David, listen, Brock Purdy answered all the criticism, in my opinion. Now, the only thing I think he could have done better, and this is very harsh, and this is what I said. When I was watching the game and I saw that San Francisco had the ball first, I said to myself, they need to score a touchdown, because I believe that anything less than a touchdown from the San Francisco 49ers, the game was over, and I was proved right, because I did not think San Fran was going to win this game from scoring a field goal. And at the end of the day, that is what happened. But Brock Purdy in that second half was knocked off his step by Chris Jones. And on that 3rd and goal to score a touchdown, Chris Jones got in his face straight away. And I don't put that on Brock Purdy, if I'm being completely honest with you. Some people are going to go out there and say that they can, but Chris Jones is one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL. In my opinion, he completely wrecked the game, unlike Nick Bosa, who should be ashamed of himself because he generated little to no pressure on Patrick Mahomes in the second half. In the first half, he sort of did, but he still finished the game with 0 sacks. He was collapsing too early on the runs and letting Kansas City run at the end of the game. But Brock Purdy, I think, stood up to the noise.
I thought Bosa read Mahomes well and put Mahomes under a lot of pressure. When Mahomes wanted to go to his favourite side, Bosa read him really well. So I think you're being a bit harsh on Bosa.
No, I disagree because we saw Aaron Donald in a Super Bowl 2 years ago say to the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line, I'm going to wreck this game. And Aaron Donald had the play on 4th and 1 where Joe Burrow completely got sacked and the Los Angeles Rams won the game. Nick Bosa had the opportunity to do the exact same thing in overtime. Kansas City were 4th and 1 inside their own half, and instead Nick Bosa was more focused on the fake run that Pacheco didn't do when he had the chance to go straight for Patrick Mahomes, nail him in the dirt, and call it a game. Instead, Patrick Mahomes scrambles for 8 yards on that play, which eventually leads to the game-winning touchdown drive. So, David, I understand what you're saying, but if Nick Bosa wants to be considered an all-time great defensive player, he's a Defensive Player of the Year winner, he needs to make that play because I saw Aaron Donald make that play against Joe Burrow 2 years ago in that Super Bowl.
You're being harsh.
I do not think I'm being harsh at all. He had 0 sacks on the game, and at least despite the 0 sacks, he had a chance to put himself in the history books at the end of the game, but he didn't do it. If I was coaching the San Francisco 49ers, I would have said to Bosa, you just focus on Mahomes and let everyone else worry about Pacheco, because everyone, but maybe you disagree, David, but at 4th and 1, everyone knew the ball was going to Mahomes, okay? And with the ball going to Mahomes, he's either going to do one of two things. He's either going to throw it or he's either going to pass it, right? He's either going to throw it or he's going to rush it. So the fact that he was able to get rushed so easily, he didn't even look to throw the ball, David. He basically got the ball and just ran. So for the 49ers to be so ill-prepared for that was ridiculous.
Okay.
Yes.
So I said to the two of my friends sitting on the couch with me, I said, watch Mahomes here. He's going to get the ball, and he's going to take it on his own back to win the game. Yeah. And they both, you know what they both said? That's too obvious. Okay? So maybe they thought it was too obvious to give it to Mahomes as well, because I said he will do it. So maybe it was too obvious play. So maybe you are being harsh. Like I said, maybe it was a coach's error because not many people thought Mahomes would do that. They wouldn't. No. He was the best player on the field to do it, but maybe it was too obvious a play.
The simplest play most often is the best play, and that was the simplest play. You put the ball in the hands of your best player because you ride or you die with Patrick Mahomes, and that's the reality of the situation. And San Francisco needs to have a better understanding of that situation, and that's the first coaching error I believe they made in this game. The second coaching error, David, I believe they made in this game, and you might call this harsh, but I do not think this was harsh at all. In my opinion, the reason
you're fired up. Is that because you're so angry at the loss?
No. I just believe that when you play Mahomes, David, okay, in order to beat him, the margin for error is so minimal that the little tiniest mistakes is what costs you. And the littlest tiniest mistakes is what cost San Francisco in this game. And I'm going to tell you the second coaching error I believe they made. And it happened with 3 seconds to go in the overtime period. Because I believe, while I was watching the game, I was thinking to myself, why are Kansas City letting the clock run down? I was thinking, I was like, they're leaving so little room for error, but they must have been that confident they had the play, which they did. But I also believe that they kept on running the clock down, because if you were looking at that San Francisco 49ers defense, they were so goddamn tired. Their legs were shaking. They were putting their hands on their knees. And David, my
Go on.
question to you is, when it gets down to less than 5 seconds or less than 10 seconds in the ball game, you had 2 timeouts. If you were the San Francisco 49ers, you could visibly see that your players were tired. Why would you not call a timeout there and give your defense the best possible chance to go and get a stop? Because, David, we saw San Francisco get some very big stops in this game, particularly on short yardage situations. There was a 3rd and 1 that they stopped, and then they stopped the 3rd and 1 inside the Kansas City territory in the 3rd quarter, forcing them to punt. They had very big stops in the game, and I don't understand why they didn't call a timeout. Maybe they were afraid that Kansas City were going to have more time to call a good offensive play. But David, in response to that, Kansas City were marching down the field, play after play after play after play after play. So obviously, in my opinion, they had to call a timeout. If Kansas City were struggling and then they got to that position, maybe you ride with your defense. But Kansas City, the scales were tipping like this, like this, like this. And if they hadn't called that timeout, they would have given themselves the best possible chance to put a stop to this game. Or if they called a timeout, they could have forced them into a field goal. Because if you call a timeout with 5 seconds to go before the ball gets snapped, then the play now is, are the Chiefs going to be safe and take a field goal? Or are they going to go for the touchdown? I still believe they go for the touchdown, but San Francisco could have made it much more difficult on Kansas City than what they did, and they let Kansas City ride the momentum all the way until the final buzzer, and they had the chance to stop, and that is the second coaching error I believe they made, which I believe ultimately cost them the game, amongst other things, which I'll talk about in a few minutes.
I think you're forgetting the pressure that was on the coaches and the players in that moment, in that game. Okay? So I think you make a very valid point, but you're forgetting the time and the decisions that had to be made. And I think panic stations were just everywhere and there wasn't enough calm.
Well, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you shouldn't just be watching from the sideline. You are not just going to sit there and be like, wow, this drive from the Chiefs is one of the greatest things ever. You're thinking, how am I going to win the ball game? And the best way to win the ball game is to give your players some rest. David, in the play before, Travis Kelce caught a 1-yard pass, and the San Francisco 49ers defense nearly folded on that play because he just got pushed from behind like a rugby scrum and nearly scored on that play. The San Francisco defense honestly stopped. The referees blew that play dead. If that play had gone in for another 2 seconds, Travis Kelce probably scored the game-winning touchdown drive. They were shot. Even the commentators were saying how tired they were and how Fred Warner... Well, yes, exactly, but it's much less tiring when you're the offense, David, and you know exactly what's about to happen. Because then you have, and like I said, you're riding the momentum, you're getting that adrenaline rush. If you're the defense, you're thinking, oh my God, when is this gonna end? You're trying to do something about it, but Mahomes was just throwing haymaker after haymaker after haymaker. San Francisco needed to stop the momentum, and they did not do it. I'm not saying Kansas City wouldn't have scored, but I'm saying that San Francisco did not give themselves the best possible chance to win the ball game. And that is simply my point. And the players aren't the ones on defense calling a timeout. That comes down to the coaches, and that comes down to Kyle Shanahan, who is the head coach. Because I do agree with you. He did call a sound offensive game plan. For the most part, I could be very critical, but I'm not going to be. For the most part, he called a very sound offensive game plan, but that is only one job of your head coaching role. The other job is to put your team in the best positions to win with clock management, and that is something that he did not execute in overtime.
Well, they won't be there next year, so he's going to have a lot of time to think about it.
Sorry, Seth. Well, listen, it's a very interesting conversation because, look, I do believe that the San Francisco Super Bowl window is closing. However, I believe that when they lost the first Super Bowl, I think that was largely because Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't that guy and because of Kyle Shanahan's inability to call effective plays. Now, I believe in this Super Bowl, they simply were just outplayed by the greatness of Mahomes. And San Francisco, Brock Purdy made the plays he needed to play, and Kyle Shanahan made for the most part, the plays he needed to play. So I do agree with you that the San Francisco team may not be up for it, but I think, unlike last Super Bowl, this was more of a fact. This was more of a heartbreaking moment. This wasn't we should have done this, and this better.
The
This
loss
wasn't
was shattering.
but and I agree that can have an effect on a team, but that was
Massive.
Mahomes winning the game. I believe the first Super Bowl was more of a San Francisco collapse. I don't believe that this was, and I believe that this was simply Mahomes' greatness in this game. I think this will have a short-term effect.
Francisco,
Maybe.
Look,
go on.
You're right, Mahomes' greatness, but San Francisco will take a long time to recover from that loss, and I'm telling you, they mightn't.
Listen. My response to that is they need to, because Brock Purdy's only got his rookie deal for one more year, and then he's going to have to get paid. And then when he gets paid, that is going to severely impact the resources they can spread, because they're not going to be able to keep McCaffrey, Debo, and Kittle, and Ayuk, who's also up for a contract, if they pay Brock Purdy, let alone Trent Williams, the offensive lineman, let alone all the players they have on defense.
Luka,
so the window is closing.
That's my point.
I agree,
they're gone.
But David, I'm saying they don't have the time to moan and groan, because the window will physically be closed after really next season, unless Brock Purdy can continue to improve and take a lead.
They're gone.
Listen, I need to give Brock Purdy some more love, though, David, because I watched this game.
I need to go and eat my pizza. Come on.
No, I want to give Brock Purdy some love. I want to give Brock Purdy some love. And David, I need to ask you a very important question to end the show, because you may not know this, but you have some explaining to do to our viewers in terms of your views on the past and how they have impacted this game. But I want to get into Brock Purdy, David, because after he went down 13-10, he led them on a 75-yard touchdown, including a 3rd and 5 pass, 17 yards, another pass for 9 yards, another pass for 20 yards, and a 10-yard touchdown pass. He also had a 23-yard completion on the game-leading field goal drive before Mahomes took it into overtime. In overtime, he completed an 11-yard pass on 3rd and 2, another 24-yard pass, and a pass for 13 yards on 2nd and 12. He played great when he needed to, and I don't want to hear any more criticism from Brock Purdy, from anyone on sports media at all.
I don't understand. Look, Brock Purdy played great, but he got beat. Why are you trying to justify your shortcomings when you got it wrong and they got beat? Why are you talking about Patrick Mahomes, who is the greatest player in the world and will rival the GOAT Tom Brady? All you've done is talk about Purdy. Yeah, he played great, but they got beat.
Okay, that's fine. So on the field goal drive that sent them into overtime, Mahomes had a 9-yard pass, a 12-yard pass, an 8-yard pass, and then a 22-yard pass to Kelsey, which eventually set up the field goal. And in overtime, we understand he had the 4th down 8-yard run. He completed a 13-yard pass on 3rd and 6. Then he had the huge scramble for 19 yards and a 7-yard completion before the game-winning touchdown, David. If you had to let me finish, I was actually going to do both sides, but you decided to make your own agenda, which clearly I don't know why you did that. You're trying to paint me out to be someone that I'm not, but I do agree they both had spectacular moments in this game, because, David, I understand, but all everyone is going to talk about is Patrick Mahomes, because Purdy has been heavily criticized so much. So I wanted to make the point that the criticism needs to stop, and he played well in the moments he needed to play well. That was simply all I was doing.
Winners are grinners, and unfortunately, there's a winner and a loser. And
I do agree.
Unfortunately, you're on the losing team here. Okay? That's it.
I do agree, David. However, I do want to get your opinion on something, because I remember last year you said that if Jalen Hurts did not fumble the football, that the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl, and you would have been correct.
Yeah, correct. He's correct.
Now, I want to ask you, in this game, the Kansas City Chiefs had not scored a touchdown until the San Francisco 49ers absolutely had a horrendous play by absolutely botching that punt. And this led to the very first touchdown Kansas City scored. Because, David, before that touchdown, their drives were as follows. punt, punt, fumble, punt, field goal, interception, punt, field goal, punt. And 7 of those 9 drives that were non-scoring were 5 plays or less. So my question to you is, David, keeping that same energy from what Jalen Hurts did, do you believe that if that play that led to the touchdown for Kansas City, their first touchdown, do you believe that this game would have gone the other way?
That's an incredible question, Luka. It's probably why you did so well at school. There's 2 facets to that answer. One is it certainly changed the tide of the game, and it certainly changed momentum and put Kansas City back in the game. That had a huge impact on Kansas City winning. Okay? So, yes, it was just momentum changing like we saw last week with the Lions making those mistakes, those coaching errors, the same as that. Okay? So, yes, I believe it had a huge impact. What is the X factor, and we don't know, is if Mahomes, because of how Mahomes is and the champion he is, could have lifted them out of the dirt and won anyway. And no one will ever know that, and no one will ever know the question. No one will ever know the answer to that question. So you can't definitively answer that question, and no one can. But what you can say is that it changed the momentum, and it was a major stuff up because everything changed after that.
Okay, that's fine. And then my follow-up question is, so can we also say that because Jalen Hurts dropped the ball, we don't really know if they would have won the Super Bowl? Because you're convinced that if he doesn't drop the ball, they win the Super Bowl, but he did drop the ball. So could Mahomes of greatness not done the exact same thing last year?
You just want to try and prove me wrong about the
I do,
Eagles.
David, because I want to know how far do you believe Mahomes' greatness goes? And this is what I want to know, because when we're talking about the GOAT conversation, we can't say in one breath that he only won a Super Bowl because Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball and that changed the momentum of the game. But then when a similar momentum shift happened in the next Super Bowl, that it was Patrick Mahomes' greatness that led them to win. Because this is the GOAT we're talking about, David.
Listen,
I want to
listen.
distinguish.
You are using inside information here, okay? Because you know that I mourned after that game for the whole of the off season, and I
And
needed
I'm
numerous
probably going to
holidays,
be mourning too.
and I needed numerous holidays to get over that traumatic loss. Okay, so I think we should not talk about 2 years ago and just focus on Mahomes and Kelsey and
Well, David, I'm not going to lie.
the
That's a bit
rest
of a
of the
cop out
team
if you
and
ask
Andy
me.
Reid and all of them.
No,
And I
that's
should
a bit of a cop
embrace their
out.
celebration. And we should fly to Kansas. If I wasn't having my postseason off, we'd fly to Kansas and get an interview with Patty.
Listen, David, I'm simply just asking. I just want to know how great you truly think Patrick Mahomes is, because I think you're trying to have it both ways right now, and I think you need to choose.
28.
You need to choose one
He's
side or the other.
28 years old. If you watch Quarterback on Netflix, there's a plug to Netflix Quarterback. It's a great, great, great show. You see how hard Patrick Mahomes works on his body and his mind and everything, and it's a credit to the young man at 28. And look, he could have 10 or 12 more years left in him. He could have longer. He could beat Brady. He might not, but he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and he is a true champion and a champion in spirit, fatherhood, citizenship, and I hope the legend continues because it's a shame when these superstars get brought down. I hope everything works out for him because he's a wonderful, so far in his career, he's been wonderful for the game and humanity.
Listen, I understand the holistic approach to this, David, but I do really want to get into the nitty-gritties and not give Patrick Mahomes his flowers and some other things, because we understand that he was great in the Super Bowl, but I'm talking about big picture here, because we're talking about now he's chasing Brady, okay?
No question. So is Andy. Andy Reid's chasing Belichick.
Well, now he's chasing Brady, but when we talk about Patrick Mahomes' greatness, are we going to say that he was the reason, or are we going to talk about the mistakes that happened from his oppositions, which led to him winning Super Bowls?
That's that. You don't want me to swear on the show. That's bullshit. Or what? That's just a load of crap, Luka. Okay?
David, I'm
That's
asking a
look. You need to wind the show up because you're talking rubbish now. Okay,
listen,
Patrick
David.
Holmes and Andy Reid led that team to an outstanding win, and it was no fault of the 49ers, apart from they should have put it away in the first half. Okay, they made a
Well,
couple of
that was never
mistakes.
you never put the Chiefs away in the first half, David. I don't
Okay,
think
well,
you
they
can
should
say
have had a
that.
bigger lead. So, look, you're barking up the wrong tree. Okay? Just book my Chinese dinner in.
Listen, I'm Mr. Consistency over here, so I just want to make sure your opinions are consistent when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, because I don't think the NFL universe appreciates it when you say Jalen Hurts cost them the Super Bowl, but then when San Francisco cost them the Super Bowl, that Patrick Mahomes was great and he won. So I think because personally, I would put it down to Patrick Mahomes was just great in both Super Bowls, and I would like you to
I'd
do the
agree.
same thing.
I agree, but I still think if Hurts doesn't drop that ball, they win the Super Bowl. So there you go.
Well, there you go. I think that if they didn't muff that punt, then I think San Francisco win the Super Bowl. So I guess we can have it both ways then, can't we? I'm just saying, David. Listen, the other thing that I don't think can be underestimated, and this is the other, and
Dinner. That was my dinner date. That was my dinner date calling, wanting to know where I am for pizza.
right. Well, listen, David, I will have to wrap the show up then, but there was one more thing I did want to talk about, which was very important in this game, and that was when the kicker missed the extra point, which would have put them up 4 points instead of 3. I think that was also very important too, but we can debate that another time. David, thank you for joining me on this show today.
Luka,
Congratulations.
adios to a fantastic 23-24 NFL season where we entertain the public, we tip the house down. People have won houses, they've won units, they've won cars. Join in next year for your host and the guru because we keep performing year in year out.
Yes, David, I appreciate the sentiment. This has been a fantastic year of NFL, and I am excited to see what next year holds when hopefully for the whole NFL, I think the biggest letdown for me this season was the lack of healthy quarterbacks available in this season, and I hope that for next year's NFL that changes. But ladies and gentlemen, we will be moving.
I look forward to being in New Orleans with you next year because we are going and we can do the
I
show
agree.
live from New Orleans.
That would be something very amazing to do. But David, starting from next week, we will be into some NBA action because it is heating up in the basketball. All-Star weekend is around the corner. Could my Clippers rewrite history? That will be the first talking point we will be talking about on next week's episode 53 of Priceless Takes because they certainly have some interesting things going on in LA. But David, thank you for being with me for this NFL season. To our viewers, thank you for staying faithful and watching us. We will see you next season in September. I am your host, Luka Price. Thank you for joining us on Priceless Takes episode 52, and we will see you next time.